Hey guys.
Hello.
There we go. There we go.
How
Oh,
you doing, sir?
good. Bob is busy fleeing the hurricane, and Master Smith is in Hollywood for a movie premiere. So we shall see if we see either one of them today. Anyway, any questions before we get going aggressively here? None. Oh, that's easy.
Well, I talked to Master Smith on Monday, so he answered my most recent questions.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good. 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 Good.
or, or normally I have like a million questions, but he just fielded them on Monday.
Yeah, I was getting ready to snarkily say, "Get it out of your system, Barry." So,
Yeah.
as you had the opportunity. Okay, like, let's kind of get going here. Last week, um, we did get a little bit bogged down into a couple of other topic areas, but we are coming up here on Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, other holidays. Um, from a standpoint of external marketing, live event marketing, and so forth, it's about as target rich a time period as you're ever going to have, right? So when you come up to Halloween, for instance, it's a marvelous excuse, and I think we have some background noise there somewhere. But and you guys let me know if my background noise gets to be too bad. I fled my home to Starbucks. We're rapidly trying to become California, hence I've had more power outages this summer than the previous 10 years. Um, but with Halloween, the first thing you have is a wonderful excuse to hold all kinds of internal buddy referral types of events, right? So whatever excuse you use, whether it's as simple as we're having a Halloween party, or you have, some more complicated presentation than that, Halloween is a marvelous time for internal referral events, as is uh, Thanksgiving, other holidays coming up into Christmas and Christmas. It's a marvelous time for gift certificates that can be shared. It's a marvelous time to sell gift certificates that can be given as Christmas gifts. It's a marvelous time if you go backwards to be in the shopping malls between Christmas and New Year's, to be in the shopping mall Black Friday through Christmas. It's a marvelous time to be in movie theaters. There will be some of the biggest, uh, presumably blockbusters of the year will be happening over the holidays. There's any number of those things happening. Uh, then you move backwards into all the kind of Christmas and Thanksgiving events that happen in public schools, private schools, different corporate environments, and so forth. But then you move all the way back to upcoming here, Halloween is a marvelous time to do a trunk or treat or a party in your school, but also to be out at trunk or treats, to be at a different Halloween type of events. Um, I was just at our school in Thornton this weekend. They got 109 leads, 100 appointments. Presumably, that'll end up being between 50 and 70 intros, and presumably, you know, worst case, half of those hopefully will end up become new enrolled students. Um, but those type of things are fruitful right now, whether it's a harvest festival, Halloween, pumpkin patch, um, a haunted house, or it's any of the different kind of trick or treat events. Um, I repeated several times that we have an event here called at the Butterfly Pavilion. In fact, I forget what it's called, but they have a Halloween where people just set up tables and they give away candy and they have games and so forth. And that's historically been good for 75 to as many as 120 appointments in one day for our schools in that vicinity. There's similar activities at the local zoo. There's similar activity. My son's high school puts on an event that all the local elementaries and middle schools draw from that they bring in. Um, all those types of events are places where you can set up a table, You can do the price wheel, some other activity to draw traffic. You can collect leads, make appointments, give information on the spot, have conversations on the spot. Uh, and of course, then you get back into the movie theaters, and that's something that I see. Um, I kind of perceive all of us since COVID got kind of lazy. There's some background noise there. I'm going to mute you, Tomas. But all of those type of events are open and available for Halloween. Any thoughts or questions, or anybody want to share some things that you have lined up right now for the holiday?
Yeah, so I'll share.
Go ahead, Sydney.
We have October is religiously always our busiest month for external events. So this month we have a local event called the Barbecue Bash, which is just a giant festival. That's a 2-day event. We have like 4 trunk or treats we're scheduled for, and 2 other local Halloween events that are not necessarily trunk or treats. So we have a lot on the docket, which led me to one question, which I think I knew the answer, but I just want to clarify with how you guys do trunk or treats specifically. Do you still attempt to book appointments during those?
Yes. Whenever possible.
Okay.
We were having this long and involved conversation yesterday, and over the weekend at the live event. And by the way, yesterday's meeting at the higher level members, I did post the Zoom video in the Facebook group.
Okay.
And we were just having a conversation about what the takeaways were. But generally, if you look at lead to appointment ratio, is we try to kind of give generalized benchmarks, but an online lead and a referral event or a live event are very different, right? So if I'm out at a live event, typically my lead to appointment ratio is going to be 90-95%. Pretty much everybody I talk to, I'm going to make an appointment with. If I'm getting an online lead, we know the problem is when they fill out a form online, our best outcome is we get them to initiate a call to us. Because otherwise what we end up with constantly chasing, especially if it's not immediacy of response, chasing with text, email, live outbound calls, voicemails, and so forth, and direct mail. So typically with a live Halloween event or a live trunk or treat or whatever, we can get 80, 85, 90% of them to make an appointment on the spot. Now, sitting where I think the question comes from is an awful lot of these events are kind of, everybody's kind of lined up and they're going car to car in the case of a trunk or treat, or they're going little booth to booth in the case of like the butterfly pavilion thing. But really, if I'm out at an event and I'm sitting behind the table and I'm only talking to people who come up and talk to me, I'm barely going to have enough results to justify being there, right? If I take it up one notch and I put flyers in everybody's bags and I get lots of literature out, that's a little bit better, but still we know the response rate's not very high. The likelihood of them even remembering that they interacted with this is pretty low. If I take it to the next step and I get name, address, and phone number, I've got a much worse lead, frankly, than a Facebook ad or a Google ad, because they were just kind of wandering through and, the excuses of trying to win a prize or something like that. And so I end up chasing them down with less efficacy than an online lead. On the other hand, when I'm face-to-face, belly-to-belly, and I can have enough of a conversation and make an appointment on the spot, I have a problem with getting them to show up, but I don't have the chase them down forever syndrome that I have on an online lead. So, if I had my druthers, I'm going to talk to 5 people in 20 minutes, really anchor them in, give them information, make an appointment, then try to hustle through as many people as humanly possible, right? So yeah, I'm going to, in every sense and everywhere I can, even if it slows down the line, even if people start going around us, whatever, I'm going to communicate with them enough to hopefully spark their interest give them whatever information they may need to make it likely they're going to show up.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
You bet. You bet. Good.
Mr. Oliver, I have a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
Good.
so if we set up, we set up the event, so like similar to what she was just saying, and like say if you get like say like 40 or 50 leads.
Mhm.
So the ideal thing is to schedule them for the next day. So let's say it's a Friday event, so we want to schedule it for a Saturday. Now, I guess my exact question is, how would you exactly recommend doing that? Would it be like, say, for example, all the kids that are like, I don't know, from like 3.5 to like 7, like set them for a certain time, like at 12 o'clock, and then the 8 and up, for example, would be like at like 12:45, and then like say all the adults would be like whatever it is, 1:15, and then do like a mock class, or would you keep everyone separate, or just like group them like 2 or 3? So if you had, let's see if you had the whole Saturday open for like all the appointments, how would you set that up?
Well, I guess first of all, you're going to get an awful lot of them that can't come in the next day. You know, especially around Halloween. There's so many different things going on. But you're right. I want to get them back 24, 48, 72 hours. I want to get them back as quickly as possible. And then, Barry, part of that question is revolves around your staffing. You know, if it's one of our schools and we have 4 instructors that are going to be there anyway, I don't have to so much worry about the age bracketing. If one person's going to be there by themselves, I don't want to book a 3-year-old with a 20-year-old, right? So you've got to keep that difference in mind. The how would I organize it specifically? Well, on an event like that, in all likelihood, if I schedule 10 appointments, 5 of them are going to show up that day. The rest of them are either going to no show or reschedule, right? So that typically would be my rule of thumb, is that I would try to schedule about 10 at a time, and then know. Again, I don't know where the background noise is coming from. Hopefully, it's not my end, but I think it is you. I think it is you. You and Tomas tend to have problems with the microphone on your end. But
Well, Tomas was moving around. I wasn't moving around. I'll try making the volume lower because I think that helped last time, but then I get where you can't hear me.
that is better.
That is better. Okay.
Yeah. That's not affecting the volume of your mic, it's affecting the volume of your output.
Okay. Yeah, because I can still hear you fine. It's a little lower, but
Yeah.
it's fine. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the question is Barry, then is for everybody, is a matter of staffing. So if you're going to be the only one there, what you would both want to do is, you know, max it out at 10, maybe 15 in a group class, but then balance them out by age.
Real quick question on that though. When you say like 10, do you mean like set 10 appointments, or you figure if you set 20, 10 will show? So like, you know what I mean? So if you're saying, should I set 10 for that time period so I know 5 will show, or is it, you know, the double?
Right. No, 10 to 15 maximum, knowing that you're going to get, you know,
Gotcha.
best case, you're going to get 100%, but that hardly ever happens. More likely, you're going to get 50 to 70% of them that show, and the balance of them reschedule or just, you know, no show, cancel on you.
Okay, so we have the, like, say like the 7 kids, the younger ones, for example, and they show up at that 12 o'clock time we made. Now, what would you actually go through with them? Would you do like a mock class for their age? Like, even though, you know, it's not officially on the schedule, but you're going to make a class for them, all the kids, or would you do more of like an intro type, like in the video series that they sent us? Which would be more like almost like an individual where you kind of go through some of, like, you know, like the mental stuff and like the focus and stuff like that. How would you set it up? Like, what do you think is the best way to do it for that very first visit?
Well, it would be a first introductory class, right? And I wouldn't use the term mock class. I would you know.
I mean, that's not on the schedule. It's just like, you know, I'm just making up. It's like the normal class I run for that age, but it's just I'm doing for that day.
Well, if the normal class that you're running for that age is heavily dependent upon character development lessons, heavily involves the parents, heavily as an interactive explanation of what the long-term outcome is heavily focused on black belt and goal setting long-term follow-through, yes. Um, what I see a lot of times, various people just bring them in and we do our first class. Well, what I want is where I am, whether it's a tour of the school where you're, pointing out significant pieces, the information you're handing out, and the content in the class. It's not just about technical skills. It's about the character development aspects, the goal setting aspects, the long-term follow through, all of that stuff, right? So the what I might more appropriately say is I think of every class in the first 4 months is really about the long-term outlook, the goal setting, following through to black belt, not so much about learning technical skill set, right? Now, I've got to teach them some simple technical skills so that they feel like they're both learning something tangible and that they're mastering something tangible. But the technical skill set isn't what keeps them around. It's the character development, the goal setting, the enjoyment of class combined with the benefits.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
but if it's five people or 10 people, whatever it is, that's still going to be, everybody there for the first time, being introduced to the school, introduced to the curriculum, and introduced to the long-term benefits.
Okay, so I also don't have yet the family classes because that was like new yet for me. So and I understand like when you do like the intros, you want to have like the parents doing it because it parlays into having them taking also.
Yeah.
In the short term, do you think I should bother doing that just run it like a kids class? Yeah, meaning
No,
like, so
just
let's say if I have the event there's like this Friday and Saturday, we're talking Saturday, or
mhm,
get the adults in there too because it's just a good idea.
mhm.
Master Oliver, can I interject?
Go right ahead, Riley.
Well, what I would say, sir, is that um, firstly, it's better to sometimes just implement and just start doing it than to figure
Yeah.
out how to start doing it. But on top of that, anytime I run an intro class, I don't even give the parents the choice. I just say, all right, take your shoes off, hop on the mats. We're doing class together. You're doing it with your child, because then you're not um, coming off to them as coy. You're not saying, oh, well, you know what? Would you like to come in and try a class? Because they're not gonna be bothered. They're gonna say, no, it's good. I'm here for my kid. I don't give them a choice. I just get them on the mats and I just have them do it together. Now, while I do not personally do family classes, it is highly recommended in this program because it yields great results. But yeah, I mean, don't even give parents the choice. Just tell them take their shoes off and get on the mats. That's all I have to offer.
Yeah. And Barry, from a standpoint of shifting from quote unquote kids classes to family classes, all you do is you change the title of the classes and they now become family classes. And honestly, if you're teaching kids markedly differently than you're teaching adults, you're not teaching kids very effectively. Really what you want to do is you want to teach kids at the same level that you teach adults and then translate for the kids, right? And what I find with any technical skill, ultimately the kids are going to learn faster than the adults. The younger ones, maybe the first couple of months, first 3 months, first 5 months, is going to take them a little bit longer to get up and running than it would an adult. But before long, they're moving much faster, whether it's martial arts or music or second language or whatever, or programming or whatever it might be. They're gonna absorb and learn much faster, right? So yeah, Barry, I think you're overthinking it. You just have every kid from now on who comes in to take an introductory class. You have the parents take the class with them. As Riley just said, it's just very assumptive. Here, Mrs. Jones, take your shoes and socks off. You're going to take class with them. Come with me. And that's it. And then you work diligently to get them to go ahead and join in with you once you go from there.
Yeah, because what's new for me to also is because I always had them come first visit, signed them up first visit,
Mm-hmm.
and I did effectively. My percentage for this year is 80%, so I did that pretty well. It's just you can't do that through the fire hose, So now if I'm doing an event and I have 1 million, I have to change it, which I'm happy to do, just for the record. But because now it's just like just a totally different way of structuring. That's, the dynamics of my questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, be careful what you mean when you say you did it effectively. When you're doing low price, no contract, it's a much different phenomenon than you're doing higher tuition rates, substantial commitment.
Well, to give you an idea, I just raised my prices over $100 when I just started you guys, to 325,
Yeah.
and I had three people in a row, and they all three signed up, so
Yeah.
like my old way works pretty well. It's just you can't do it like in a fire hose.
Uh, your old way didn't work very well because you were grossing 7 or 8,000 a month, not grossing 70 or 80.
No, I hear you. No, I'm not being high and
So
mighty by no means. So
no,
that's what I'm
no.
trying to stick by
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
numbers.
Be careful what yardstick you're using.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, but anyway, so the rationale for the 2-lesson intro is predominantly so you make sure with kids you end up with all decision makers present. I don't want mom enrolling the kid without dad involved. I don't want dad enrolling the kid without mom involved. Oftentimes, I don't want the parents enrolling the kids without the grandparent who's paying part of the freight to be involved. So that's the difference: is getting all of the decision makers in the loop and making sure that they're involved and committed. And oftentimes, the balance between let's make it as simple as possible to get involved is the balance between long-term retention, commitment, and also price point. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Well, let's move along. The thing that happens ineffectively in most cases, and it's pretty much across the board, is effective follow-up on leads once you have them, right? Is what we were talking about before on a live event type of traffic is let's say you get kind of the lower acceptable numbers. Let's say you get 80 or 90% that make an appointment, but then you get half of them show up, half of them enrolled. Now, the outcome of that is you still have 75 or 80% of the people you interacted with in any way, shape, or form, that you have a name, a mailing address, a phone number, and an email address that didn't enroll, right? And the first thing I think that we all have to really anchor in is that somebody not getting involved today doesn't mean they're not involved in the activity. It just often means that life is busy otherwise, and now wasn't the right time, right? Sometimes it means they just need more education, more information. They need to have you educate them more on the benefits of the activity to become more convinced. And other times it means, we have so many things going on in October, and we have a family trip, and we have 4 or 5 other things that October wasn't a good time to get started. So just because you happen to snag us, basically Carnival Barker with a cane at a booth or whatever else it might be, I came in for a referral event or whatever, that doesn't mean that we're ready to start some new activity. And we do know that there is some seasonality to that. People tend to focus on what are we going to do for fall back to school, then they tend to focus on what are we going to do for the new year, then they tend to focus on what are we going to do for the summer. So there's seasonality that goes with this as well. And going back to follow-up is the reason you put them on an email list, but you put them on retargeting, meaning Google, Facebook, other platforms perhaps. But the reason you put them on retargeting on an email list, the reason that you periodically follow up with text and with voicemail, with live person doing outbound calling, the reason why you consistently, repetitiously, and continuously drop on them with direct mail is the overall lifetime value of a new enrollment is such that if I spent another $50 or another $100 on 10 leads, and I only got one of them, I have invested well, right? So if I ended up spending an extra $100 on lead follow-up, most of the expense is going to be either the human being doing the phone call or the mail going in the mail. Text messages aren't terribly expensive. Email is rounding error to free. So the retargeting isn't terribly expensive on Facebook and Google because you're mostly paying on a per click basis. So what you end up with is, so many of us, what we do is we get a lead, we spend a really, perhaps a large amount of effort in a week or two to follow up. Then what's our conclusion? Oh, they must not be interested. And we drop it. And if we have enough lead flow, we go on to the next one, to the next one, and the next one. What you really want to be doing is thinking in terms of building your list of people who have raised their hand. And there's 2 or 3 different subsets of that list. One subset of that list is they came in and they were a student. They were a student for a month, they were a student for 3 months, they were a student for 9 months, whatever it might be, and they faded out. So that's one list that we always should be going back to, because reactivation is better than going out to the cold market. Number 2 are people who came in and interacted with the school and never actually enrolled. And then number 3 is those people who raised their hand. They filled out a form on the website. They filled out a opt-in form. They interacted with you for a booth. They came into a birthday party. They came into a buddy day, but they haven't yet come in for an introductory, right? So what we want to do is get very good with continuous, frequent, and forever follow-up with all of those people. Does that make sense? So, one of the apps that we've been using more recently is what is it? Direct mail, Mailbox Power. And there's any number of different iterations of apps and so forth that can do stuff like this. We also use Amazing Mail, send out cards. There was another one that was Direct Mail Manager as opposed to Mailbox Power. But they're all different places designed to be able to facilitate direct mail in small batches, right? So in other words, instead of going to a mail house and dropping 5,000 pieces, they're set up to facilitate a fairly small number. Now, one of the things that I would definitely recommend is every lead that you have in your database to at least be in their mailbox once a month, preferably more frequently than that. But what you want to get really good at is building a big email list and then being in their inbox several times a week, preferably daily, but several times a week they're getting email from you. The email, the more informal, regular, and educational it is, the better it's going to work. And the more purely promotional, formal, corporate looking, the less effective it's going to work, right? So I want to be sharing success stories. I want to be sharing information about things going on in the school. I want to be sharing success stories of students, of what they've accomplished, presumably as part of being part of your program. I want to be sharing special events that are going on with invitations to attend those events. And then once you get into a routine, I've seen Riley floating around here in the meeting a little bit, but last week we were talking on Thursday, I think, about getting a regular flow of follow-up. But if every month you do 2 or 3 different types of referral events, they're only going to fit into a certain category of different types of events. They may be a testing or a recital. They may be a performance. They may be a buddy night. They may be a movie night. They might be a parents' night out, some other type of event like that. Once you have a promotional cycle, a series of emails, postcards, voicemails, and so forth for one type of event, you just recycle that every time you go back to that same event. Maybe you build on it each time. Maybe you tweak it a little bit as you go. But for each of those, if I had a certain type of event that was hosting 6 times a year and another one that was spring and fall, another one that was essentially monthly, well, all of that can be promoted out to my email list using the same copy, just repeating the same thing, maybe minor tweaks if you want to update it. But just keep in mind that if I send somebody an email in October and then I send them essentially the same email in December, it's not like they remember the email in October. I'm not worried about it being them saying, why are you sending me the same thing over and over again? what's happening is they're just kind of sort of barely paying attention. It's kind of whizzing by. You showing up in their email box, even if they don't open it and read it, is reminding them of your existence. If they open it and read it, you're not finding what they do, and except 1 out of 1,000 maybe. They're not going hit print, print it out, put it on the magnet on the refrigerator. Hence, you have to keep showing up and showing up and showing up. Different from direct mail, by the way, with heavy direct mail and with newspaper advertising, with marriage mail. What I would hear many times is, well, I tore out your ad every time I saw it, and I had 6 of them underneath the magnet on the refrigerator in the kitchen before I ever got around to calling you. With direct mail, we get similar types of feedback as I stacked up your postcards or I stacked up your stuff, and I finally got around to calling you. But with digital, text message, with voicemail, with email, with retargeting on Facebook or retargeting on Google or retargeting on Instagram, it's more like radio advertising. It flashes in front of them. They either immediately respond or they don't. They don't particularly notice that they've seen the same message 3 times, 5 times, 6 times. All they remember is, they got email from you, then they got another one, then they got another one. They opened this one, that looks interesting. That's more the cycle. Is that making sense for everybody? So what I'll hear a lot of times is people say, well, you told me I should email them 250 times a year. How do I come up with 250 unique things? Well, you don't have to. I mean, if you came up with 2 months worth of stuff and then repeated it and repeated it and repeated it, that'd be fine. Frankly, if you came up with a month's worth of stuff and then repeated it 12 times, mostly they wouldn't notice the difference. And so you don't have to be all that creative. But again, the thing that's going to work best on email is to look personal, to look informal. So the more it looks like the thing that came from your bank, the more you try to professionalize it, and it looks like something that came from, a billion-dollar company, the less likely they are to pay attention, the less likely they are to engage, the less likely they are to respond. The more it looks like it's person-to-person communication. So storytelling, I was teaching class today and Billy came in and we had this thing that happened. And what we found was, things like that, personal human interest stories, that's much more engaging than trying to put on a corporate facade and have a beautiful template and fit it all into that kind of category. Does that make sense? So with all of our lead generation efforts, what I often thought, for instance, summer, is I was always looking at, we're trying to hit our 20 enrollments a month, but we're also looking at generating 1,000 leads so that we can blitz them for back to school. And so we can blitz them for back to school with maybe a 6-step direct mail sequence, a daily email, couple time a week text, a series of voicemails, live person following up on the list behind the mail and the other stuff. But what I was always looking for is we're going to go a heavy hit for seasonality, back to school, New Year's, summer activities and so forth. But we're also going to drip on them continuously and repetitiously, basically forever, right? Now, there is always going to be recency bias towards recency on your list, meaning the lead that I generated this week is a lot more likely to be responsive than the one that I've had for a year, is more likely to be responsive than the one for 2 years, for 3 years. But that doesn't mean that at any point I get rid of retargeting them, emailing them, and so forth. Now, how much money am I going to spend on them for direct mail? That might be a recency issue. I might go back a year, or I might go back 2 years. I might not go back 5 years. But if I have somebody on the email list for 5 years and they haven't opted out, I'm going to continue to drip on them. If I have them on the list, I'm going to continue to retarget them on social media, retarget them on Google. Periodically, I'm going to text message to invite them to events and so forth. So I'm not going to skip follow up in all of those venues, with the exception I may make a decision on how much money I'm going to spend with them based upon recency to some extent. Does that make sense? Any thoughts or questions on that?
My quick question is for the retargeting on Facebook and Google. I'm not sure if I know exactly what that means. So it sounds like if you have like say like 10 leads, you tell Facebook like to just like send like ad to them. Is that what that is?
Well, there's two ways to retarget on Facebook or Google. One way is you just have an HTML code on your website, and then the platforms know when somebody hit that HTML code, and then you can Facebook calls it a custom audience of people who have visited your website, right? So
Interesting.
that in and of itself is retargeting. The second way to retarget is I go to a live fair and I capture, in the case of Steve, 109 leads. As long as I put it in an Excel file or some other text file, I can upload that or I can put it in a CRM that's connected to Facebook. But I can upload that file into Facebook. I can upload that file into Google, and then I can tell it, to show ads to Facebook's language is a custom audience of current customers, or Google's terminology is it's a retargeting list. But I can upload a list, they'll go try to match those people and they'll show the ads to those people, right? So I can do it either way. And what I want to do is do both, right? So on any landing page, website, and so forth, what I should know is either everybody who's landed on that page or everybody who's landed on that page who didn't fill out the form, in other words, didn't opt in. But once they show up on that page, I want ads showing up to them constantly. And you've had that experience. I mean, if you haven't, go to Google and search for a car or search for, the example I use many times is I was looking for a professional video camera a few years ago. And so I went to my go-to, which is B&H Video in New York. And then there's another one called 40-second Video. And then I went to Amazon. I was looking for a specific JVC camera that shot in the Apple compatible format. But what happened now is suddenly for at least a month, I was being retargeted constantly by each one of those sites. So B&H Video was showing me ads of video cameras. Amazon was showing me ads of video cameras. 42nd Street Video was showing me the ads of video cameras. And some of them were quite sophisticated. They were showing me the one I looked at and they were showing me the alternatives, right? Hey, we got this new one that just came out. But it was the display as it was showing up. Go to autotrader.com or auto.com or any of the online sites, and suddenly you'll be inundated with car ads, right? And if they're sophisticated enough, if you're looking at a Tesla, you're going to get targeted with ads for Teslas. If you look at a Ford Mustang, you're going to get inundated with ads for a Ford Mustang. So that's what retargeting is it's tracking somebody based upon their behavior. But you can do that from offline to online as well as from online to offline. Now, as a general marketing principle, Barry, is, you want to move people who are following you, attracting you online, offline as quickly as possible. Now, what I mean by that is you want to get them on the phone, doing synchronous communication, talking to them directly, not just, clicking things and filling out forms. Or you want to get them face to face with you in the school. Or at the very least, you want to be following up with direct mail and outbound calls, not just digital stuff, right? But by the same token, if you interact with somebody offline, you can pull that data and start additionally following up with them online. And again, it's no different than I do the fair, I get 109 leads, and now they start getting sequential email from me. But they can get sequential email from me. They can get Facebook ad targeting from me. In email and text, I can have them go follow me on YouTube or something like that. But I can do social media and search retargeting. I can also do digital follow-up by email, digital follow-up by text, digital follow-up by automated voicemail if I capture the lead offline and move them online. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Thank you, sir.
You bet. You bet. Good. Any other questions so far? Virgil, is this helpful for you?
Sure, yeah, I'm getting ideas as well. Yeah, it's all marketing.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it's all the same shit, right? So it's sometimes the processes are a little tweaks here and there in the back end, but the front end is all the same thing.
Yeah, I was actually writing some notes about going to these kind of festivals. We did a festival and we gave some balloons, and that was extremely effective because so we attracted them to our table. We did some crafts, and then we would give a balloon to some of the kids, not to all of them.
Mhm.
And then as the parents were walking around with that balloon all over the fair, all the kids are like, "Where did you get those balloons?" And so, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that table. So that sent us a lot more kids. That was a super effective thing. So it triggered an idea to me that maybe we can simply walk around the fair, and if we see a family that stands out that maybe would benefit, we'll just go to them like, hey, would you like a balloon? And if you want to learn more, you can do this, go to that table and this and that. So anyway,
Sure.
yeah, that is that's kind of
Well,
what
we'll oftentimes just send the kid out in uniform, and we have that advantage, right? So send the kid out in uniform and have them direct them back over to a table, or put them in a Kung Fu Panda or Ninja Turtle costume or something like that, and point them back over to the table. The thing to keep in mind, and you didn't say you weren't doing this, but just for everybody is, the hierarchy. My ultimate target is to interact with the family, give them information, get their contact information, and schedule an appointment. And then my secondary objective is to get all their contact information, even if I don't manage to make an appointment. Lowest on the list is, I sit behind the table and wait for people to come up and ask me questions, which, I see happen all the time. I'll see people like in our market here in Denver who will kind of see us do things but not understand what it is we're doing. And so they'll put a college kid out there with their iPhone. They're sitting behind the table waiting for somebody to come talk to them. And of course, nobody goes and talks to them. And then I'm sure their conclusion is, which is fine with me, is that, hey, this thing doesn't work.
right.
But it's the level of hustle of getting them to the booth, and the balloon thing is a great way to get them to come to the booth. Having somebody in costume, and hell, you've got characters in cartoons and so forth that are tied into music as well. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be a direct tie. I mean, we'll go to a movie theater and send somebody out in a Iron Man costume or something. The kids want to come get a picture with them. But the idea of the prize wheel is it's the thing that's most recognizable that people will come to. I was at a festival in Evergreen where I live, and I was laughing because it was kind of an arts festival and one thing or another. But there was one and only one booth other than the food booth who had a long line. And turns out it was a State Farm guy, but he had this big prize wheel and everybody's lined up. There must have been 100 people in line, all lined up to spin the wheel and see what prize they won. Well, if you're out at some thing like that, who's the last person you want to talk to? The insurance guy, right? I mean, the most boring damn thing in the world. And yet he had the most people queued up trying to interact with them. And he was, I didn't pay attention enough to see if he was doing a good job or a bad job after that. Last Easter, my kids are getting a little big for it, so they're annoyed with their parents when we do it. But we would always take them to the Easter Bunny thing and get the pictures, and the Santa thing and get the pictures. And last Easter, I noticed at our local shopping mall they had the Easter Bunny, and then as you fed out from getting the picture, there was an orthodontist setting right next to the Easter Bunny. So literally, people walked off of getting their picture with the Easter Bunny and walked into the orthodontist booth and ended up getting all kinds of free stuff, and they were capturing leads and so forth. Good for them. I mean, that's exactly what they should be doing. And whether it's music lessons, dance lessons, martial arts lessons, or whatever, anytime somebody has rounded up our audience and we can get in front of that herd and present it, then we're in great shape.
Yep. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we had one of our schools. They were in Fresno, and they had gotten so aggressive with this. They'd have a prize wheel, a face painter, and a balloon animal person all at the same booth. And so they had every possible trick you could think of to drag people over to the booth, and they were getting 200 or 300 new people in a month, literally from that type of event, just because they got so good at everywhere they went, they were just getting inundated. And again, some of them are going to be flaky. Some of the traffic is flaky. That's what on Thursday or yesterday we were having that conversation of sometimes you go to one of these events and a couple of things can happen. One is maybe it's 9 miles away and most of the people come from the other side. So they're just too far geographically to feel comfortable driving to you. That's always a risk. So you do pay attention to that. And with things like the movie theater promotions, we see that happen fairly often is, the closest theater draws from the other direction as well. And so maybe half of the audience is in the right geography. And if you get enough volume, that's okay. The other thing that can happen is you can just go to something that has the wrong audience, right? I go to a winter fest or whatever, whatever the beer holiday is, and I've got nothing but college kids who are 3/4 seats to the wind. That's not exactly our audience either. So you can hit in the movie theater the wrong weekend with the wrong movie. You can hit the wrong audience. But as you tune and tweak and figure out what the right ones that work, it can be an incredibly effective tool.
I have a quick question, a trivial question. What size, because I was looking on Amazon, what size would you get the wheel? Because I see that it came in different sizes. What is optimal for like carrying it and getting the most attention and all that?
If you take a look in the discussion group, we posted a bunch of them over and over and over again. My honest answer is floor standing, big as possible, with LED lights on. And
Big as possible.
We saw one time, and I was deeply in lust with it. Although I don't know what the hell you'd ever do with it. It looked like Vanna White on a TV show. The wheel was like 7 foot tall, but in reality, they're about that big. They light up when you spin it, and by being floor standing, it gives you a little more flexibility, so it doesn't always have to be on the table. But I will tell you, Barry, is we made, probably did thousands of enrollments back when we were going to, God, what's the kids? They do all the little trinkets and toys, something trading. But we used to have a little wood one that would barely spin, and the pins would fall off of it, and that worked too, right? So it's one of those things that something that stands out that you can see for 20 or 30 feet, preferably it makes noise and or lights up when you spin it is going to do the best.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So how would be a
go ahead.
Sorry. What would be a scenario or a wording? How would you encourage them to spin this wheel, or how would you approach, or people just come over and start spinning? And what do you say, or what is like a scenario for that kind of stuff?
Oh, well, it's really complicated. I say, hey, come over here, spin the wheel, win a prize, right? So that's scripting number one. And then before they spin the wheel, we give them an information sheet to fill out. In other words, we're capturing their lead. So it's name, address, phone number, one thing or another. Regardless of whatever prize is on the wheel, they come to the school to collect the prize. We don't give anything else out at the booth, right? And then
that's the trick. Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they spin the wheel, and we high five them and go, "Congratulations, you won a free blank, whatever it is." Let's say it's a uniform. You want a free uniform. What we also do is schedule you for a free lesson at the same time, and then you can come in. We can get the right size uniform, and you can try a lesson out. We have a time tomorrow night at 7 or Thursday at 6:15. What would work better for your schedule, right? Now, at that point, 75% of them, more or less, say something to the effect of, I got to check with mom, dad, babysitter, soccer schedule, work schedule, something to the effect of, I got to go check and see what'll work. And then the answer is, oh, I understand. Tentatively, it's going to be a pretty busy week. We want to make sure we hold the spot. Tentatively, do you think tomorrow or Tuesday would work better for you? And oftentimes that leads into a conversation. Well, I know my wife's busy tomorrow. I can't do you have any other times during the week? Sure. We have this time or this time on Wednesday, this or this time on Thursday, or we have Saturday. Oh, I'm pretty sure we can do Thursday. Great. Well, let's pencil that in. I'm going to give you the phone number, email address, everything else. If you can't make it, let us know. Otherwise, we'll have the time then. And so the probably the most important piece of the scripting is I need to go check and I'll get back to you. So let's pencil something in tentatively. Tentatively, do you think this will work? And then moving it from there.
And what's the wording to get them to actually fill out that form? Because to me it's kind of like, okay, so you can only spin if you fill out the form. They'll be like, well, wait a minute, I don't really want to fill out the form. How do you handle that situation?
Here, fill this out.
Well, what am I filling out for? Or I don't know. Are there any things you should be prepared for to handle or explain or?
Well, some people are going to want to, some people aren't going to want to, right? But what sales principle, I think, number one is oftentimes we create more problems by over explaining than under explaining.
Okay.
Right. And what I want to avoid at all costs is I always know a confused prospect never buys. And I also know that if I overcomplicate things, if nothing else, I'm going to slow down the process, right? So if somebody asks, they say it's just information, for whatever you win to make sure you get your prize,
Okay.
right? Doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And then and usually what we'll do, there's again a bunch of examples in the group. Usually we'll put some tangible stuff and we'll put some lesson passages and stuff like that. In practical terms, I don't really care what it is they want. If it was a water bottle or a musical instrument or a martial arts weapon or whatever it might be. All I'm looking to do is have something tangible to get them to the school, but also schedule them for free lessons from there so that I can get them into the school. And again, the gap will be the quicker I herd people through. It's not that I'm not going to get leads. It's going to be that either I don't get the appointment made, or which is the problem with the trunk or treat thing sometimes, or I haven't had a chance to interact with them enough that they end up showing up for it. Right. Mm-hmm. So the more I get to interact with them and get them comfortable and ask questions and know about them, the better my show rate's going to be. But it's real simple. I mean, really to the point that we don't spend much time at all, even, training staff on what do they say if they don't want to fill it out, because I just say, here, fill this out, and pretty much everybody complies, right? The main thing is get them to the booth and then overcome I've got to check my schedule. Okay, well, let's schedule something tentatively. I can pencil that in and then, move through from there.
Yep, got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But it's a real simple thing. It's simple enough that you can train volunteers, you can train parents, you can train many people to do it. And yeah, I mean, I got thrown in the pan. The first time we did much of this live event booth marketing was with movie theaters, and I had 13 to 15 going on concurrently, all at the same time, spread out all across the metro area. So we had to get really good at training people how to do this in a hurry. Just making sense. Hey, Russ, good to have you. Have you been here the entire time you just turned your video on? Your lips are moving and you're muted.
Yes, sir. I've been here the whole time.
Oh, okay. I always have Zoom set up, so if you're not on video, I assume you don't exist. So anybody who's not on video does not exist. Okay. So any other questions? That was a really good question, Virgil. Any other questions on any of this stuff? No? Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's go back to on the follow-up. On any lead you get, the number one criteria that's going to determine whether you convert it to appointment is immediacy, right? So if I'm at a booth, I schedule the appointment right then and there. That's the immediacy. The thanks for your information, I'll give you a call automatically cuts it in half, right? The leaving it in their ballpark for a follow-up. If you shift it online, is oftentimes what I see is people do opt-in forms, but then what gets commonly referred to as the success page, the page that you land after you fill out the form. I keep seeing them that say, thank you for your interest. Somebody will get back to you. No. That's the dumbest thing in the world to ever do, right? If you have an online situation, the question is always, and it's an ongoing debate, how much information do I want to collect? Do I want to collect phone number and email address, just email address? Do I want to collect name, phone number, email address, mailing address? How much information do I want to collect? Now, oftentimes is we're setting up two steps. In other words, step number one, we get phone number and email address. Step number two, we give them an additional reason to collect full mailing address. But at the very least, what I want to do at the end of the sequence is I want to encourage them either to schedule their own appointment. I can do an online calendar link where they schedule the appointment, or I want to encourage them to pick up the phone and initiate an inbound call to us, right? Now, the efficacy of getting them to initiate the call and the efficacy of them showing up if they schedule their own appointment, both are suspect, right? Meaning not a high percentage of them click a button to call you or they pick up the phone and dial the phone. But I never just want to leave it at, thanks, we'll get back to you. I always want to leave it in your next step is pick up the phone, call us, ask for so-and-so, we'll answer any questions and schedule a time. Or your next step is schedule a time on the calendar for your first lesson. Now, what we're seeing is in a lot of the companies that not that we're working with them directly, but we interact with them, we like them one thing or another. There's a lot of them that are doing lead generation ads, link selling for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is one that we work with a lot. Rev marketing is one that we work with a lot for websites and Google. Biggest problem that they have is the point at which they hand the lead off to the school is the point at which it gets screwed up. There's a couple of other companies, names are escaping me right now. I think we posted in the group. They'll take it the next step and they convert lead to appointment. Now, their problem is the difference between a good client and a bad client, a client who says they're getting on flaky leads, and the clients who are doing a good job converting to students, is the immediacy of that client actually creating a relationship with the prospect. So in other words, if they get an online lead, they do AI and email and text and a human being, and they make an appointment. If you just wait for the automation to confirm the appointment and for them to show up, the show rate's still going to be pretty low. You've got to shift it to you get them on the phone, build a relationship with them, right? And again, the nice thing about I'm at an elementary school or I'm at a live event or something is I have them right then and there and I can build that relationship, as opposed to I'm now trying to chase them down. Does that make sense? So I always want to, on an online system, one, I want to recognize conversion is going to be depend upon immediacy. If they make their own appointment, do I immediately get hold of them and build a relationship on the phone? If I just capture a lead, do I immediately get them on the phone, or do I? And here's how immediate I mean. If I get an opt-in at 10 o'clock in the morning, do they get a call at 10:01 or do they get a call at 3 o'clock? I see a lot of schools where, prime time is 3 or 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock. So, somebody comes in and checks the leads at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and everything that came in from maybe 10 p.m. to 4 o'clock are getting follow-up at the same time. That doesn't work. Well, we always schedule an online leads is we schedule where the person who's supposed to be doing the follow-up gets a text immediately. And when they get that text immediately, they're getting the text with the phone number, whatever other information, certainly name, so that they can initiate an outbound call immediately. And it's not my data, it's Google's data. They show that if somebody follows up within a minute, it has like a 400% better likelihood of outcome than even waiting an hour, much less waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, right? So in all contexts, the starting point, it sounds like I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. The starting point is immediacy of follow-up. If it's online, initiating a call while they're looking at the web page. If it's offline, it's the kids are in for a birthday party. It's scheduling the appointment right then, not saying, "Hey, we'll call you back tomorrow, the next day, and we'll follow up from there." I never want to leave that, and I want to encourage them to make the next step, and always have the contact information so I can be proactive. And again, remember what I mean by that. If they go home with a flyer, a packet of information, the likelihood of them calling me is weak. I have their lead information, name, address, and phone number, and they leave with a packet of information. I have the ability to follow up. They leave with a packet of information. I have name, address, phone number, mailing address, and an appointment. Even better, because now my follow-up is to get them to come in. Not my follow-up is to answer additional questions and hope that I can make an appointment. Is that all making sense? Russ, is this all making sense for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. Well, if there's any other questions, let's do that. Otherwise, we'll call it a day here pretty quickly. I will just remind you that you've really got to get out and beat the bushes and set up events for Halloween because you're running out of time here. It's already the 9th. So it's coming up in a couple of weeks. You want to make sure you're set up with that. Is that good? Okay. Virgil, we were going to
Sure.
follow up after the meeting here, I believe. If I'm reading my calendar right. Everybody else, I will see you tomorrow. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks, guys. Virgil, let me